Welcome to the Wealthy Artist Podcast. And I'm your host, Sarah Clanton.
And I'm Wilson Harwood. And we're talking about how to develop your wealth,
enjoy financial freedom,
enjoy artistic freedom,
and live the life you've always imagined.
How's everyone doing today? Welcome to our first book club episode.
Yeah. Yes.
It's going to be great.
It is. We just are very excited about it because that's really what started this whole podcast, was us kind of getting together and reviewing books we were reading that we hoped would fuel our growth as humans. And we just did an episode on the top 10 books you should read to increase your income in 2021. And this book was actually on there. So we thought we'd invite y'all to read it with us. And if you have, cool. If you haven't, cool. But we're glad you're here. And this is Essentialism, our Sarah and Wilson's book club episode on Essentialism by
McKeown. M-C-K-E-O-W-N. I don't know how to pronounce that, but here's the book if you're on YouTube. And I think we should also say it's a book club episode for The One Thing as well.
For The One Thing?
Yeah, because it's also like Essentialism. It's another book kind of with the same exact premise.
That is our essential thing.
Yeah, it's the same. They're the same topic essentially. So so we'll throw that one in there as an extra. But yeah, this is going to be a short, quick little episode today. But we're hoping to do a couple of these, every month for you guys, and keep you reading and learning and growing your wealth.
Yeah, and focusing a little bit more. I mean, we'll mention books in almost every episode that we do, and it is linked in the resource guide in the show notes here for you. But we thought it would be really nice to get to focus a few more minutes on one book specifically. And Wilson, you were so excited about this book, and I am so excited. I soaked it up. I just read it really quickly over the weekend, and oh man, I feel like it just really is a great sum up of kind of all of the things we've been talking about. It kind of boils it down into just, all the things we talk about, that value of really getting at the heart of it. And why do you do it? What's the one thing that drives you? And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it's almost too simple to even talk about, because we look at it, it's like, so it's defined as essentialism is a consistent and focused pursuit of less but better, which is one definition there. And within that definition, I think there's so many different ways that the author kind of pulls it out, and it kind of draws you into ways that this very simple idea is actually super complex.
Yes.
And very challenging for most of us. It doesn't come natural, which is so weird.
Well, we're taught, I think, right now, how we've kind of socialized ourselves is to be busy, that feeling of busy, that kind of, I was actually kind of thinking about this earlier. I'm more aware of when it happens now, that kind of, we all talk about, we get very proud of how busy we are. And so kind of that feeling of oh my gosh, well, if I'm jacked up on work and I'm feeling like I'm doing stuff, then I'm going to get more done. But really that feeling is counterproductive. And so instead of thinking about all the things all the time and trying to get all done, he asks the question, what is essential? What is most essential? What action can I take right now that is most essential? Because one decision right now can make 1,000 decisions later. If you just offhandedly make decisions without intent, without really thinking about, why you're doing it, then it's going to create a lot more problems and more things to think about along the way than solutions.
And it makes your life much more manageable and easy. Because if you kind of feel like your world's an oyster, like that saying is, it's actually a bad thing, because you're oh my gosh, I could do anything.
Yes.
And I have so many options. And I think especially as artists, we have that feeling, because as an artist, you technically could be a recording artist, you could be a vocalist, you could be a guitar player, maybe you do multiple things, you could be a producer, you could be a touring artist, you could not tour, there's just endless amounts of things that you could do within the world of music as a career.
Yes.
And so the sooner that you're able to sort of focus in on one thing, and this, again, I just want to say,
diagram for this
doing
from the book.
One thing doesn't mean you have to do it for your whole life, but it just means you focus on one thing for the time being. You choose a project and you're I'm going to become really good as a producer or something.
Right.
And then you don't go off and start touring, 150 days a year because you're trying to become a producer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems kind of simple, but it's really not as easy as
and energetically, he kind of made this great graph or a little picture in his book. And on YouTube, I don't know if you can see it. Hold it up.
Hold it up to the camera.
All right. So
Cool.
You have to read it to get to see like the
Can I
full
see
thing.
it?
Yeah.
Like...
So there are two circles, one on the left and right, and one circle in the middle. It says energy of each one. Each one represents your energy, and the one on the left is a small circle with a lot of little arrows pointing out that aren't going very far, all around the edge. The one on the right, the circle on the right, there's one arrow, and it's very long, and it's very high, and it's very straight. It's in one direction, and it's a much farther reach. I think this is just such a great like visual example of how there is energy in focus, and how that just, it sort of snowballs. And it's so hard for artists. We have to do so many things. So, but what is your essential intent, right? But I really like this quote here. Talks about that kind of like decision exhaustion. Mm-hmm. You know, like I feel this is an example I think I've said on the podcast before, but I'm gluten intolerant. I have other food allergies, and I can only eat certain things. So that actually makes going out to eat easier for me, because I don't have to think about all the menu decisions. I'm like, okay, I have these few things. And it actually is really nice now, you know?
Yeah. I feel the same thing at the grocery store.
Yes.
Because I'm like, oh, I'm only eating, you know, like organic vegetables, and I've like cut all these things out. So like half the aisles, I'm like, so long, don't have to look at that aisle.
Right.
It's really nice.
When you know why you're doing it, you know, you want to, for whatever reason it is.
I sound so snooty there, but I am snooty, just so you know.
But it's like part of your lifestyle design, right? It's part of your, you know, it's lifestyle design to like to eat well. There's like no shame in that at all. Like there's no shame in like wanting to eat well and spend, and that's a whole other thing we could talk about. It's another book.
I didn't want to get you off topic.
No, it's okay. But there's there is a quote here regarding this image, and in both images the same amount of effort is exerted. In the image on the left, the energy is divided into many different activities. The result is that we have the unfulfilling experience of making a millimeter of progress in a million directions. In the image on the right, the energy is given to fewer activities. The result is that by investing in fewer things, we have the satisfying experience of making significant progress in the things that matter most. The way of the essentialist rejects the idea that we can fit it all in.
Yes. Perfect.
And I really like that. The way of the essentialist is actually the next paragraph here. The way of the essentialist means living by design, not by default. Instead of making choices reactively, the essentialist deliberately distinguishes the vital few from the trivial many, eliminates the non-essentials, and then removes obstacles to the essential things so the essential things have clear, smooth passage. In other words, essentialism is a disciplined, systematic approach for determining where our highest point of contribution lies, then making execution of those things almost effortless.
Yes. And that, I think, leads into like the first thing they talk about, because it's really essentially this stepping stone phase where you can't start cutting things out until you know what your highest self is.
Right.
And I think this can feel overwhelming for many people, obviously.
We don't think about it. We haven't really been taught to think that.
Yeah, you're not like, oh my God, what's my highest self? But I think as you start reflecting on this, and especially as an artist, you might say, okay, well, my highest self is to share my songs with the world. And I think this is where you can start to cut a lot of the fear and the BS around like, but I need to make money, so I should probably do the thing that I quote unquote think is safer. You know, even
we need to evaluate those stories.
Even with it, you need to evaluate those stories. So you might like be teaching music lessons, but you're like, ultimately what I want to be doing is touring, 300 days a year.
Right.
So like, what am I doing right now to start moving towards touring? And if you're touring 300 days a year, you don't have to teach music lessons anymore.
Right.
So you've just cut out this whole part of your life that maybe is not building you up to your greatest self.
Right. So whatever you do with intent. And working. I love the less is better. I think he even talks about he uses the analogy of like cleaning out what's in your closet and really getting rid of things, and how we tend to value things that we have as more valuable than they actually are. So like ask yourself when you're cleaning out your closet, how much would I pay for this thing? Have I worn it in a year? Like kind of getting some perspective on that. And I think that can kind of go with a lot of attitudes too. Like we don't realize sometimes these stories we're holding on to, like that, oh, I have to get this other job because like this is the way it is, and this, but does that, it could be like getting that other job, whatever it is, could totally be completely towards your goal, whether it be like mental health, financial health, health, whatever it is, stability, whatever your things are, but just being intentional.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point, because it doesn't have to be this like super risky, outlandish thing that you're trying to do. It could be totally great for your personal growth.
Right.
But yeah, intent and knowing why you're doing things, not doing things based on fear or habit.
I like this one too. He said, why is it, I wonder, that we have so much more ability inside of us than we often choose to utilize? And how can we make the choices that allow us to tap into more of the potential inside of ourselves and in people everywhere? And I love that, because when we're really living that way, we're giving other people permission to do that too. And we're like, Yeah, it feels so good.
It does feel amazing. And it feels, you begin to, like the snowball that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You start to feel that like momentum grow. I think from my own personal realization with essentialism, I've been on this journey for like 5 or 6 years because I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, but I really like to passion plan, which is this special planner. You know, there's a bunch of these planners out these days, but I got hooked on this passion planning one. And I realized going back that when I first started, I wrote down like a million to-dos every week, and I always felt terrible because I never got them done.
Right.
And I was always like, oh my gosh, I'll never get everything done.
Can relate.
Exactly. I'm sure we can all relate. And then fast forward, 5 or 6 years later, I can't even remember how long I've been doing it. And just now I'm like, oh, you're doing a reasonable amount of work every week.
That's so awesome.
And honestly, I could probably still cut more back.
Yeah. Me too.
And I'm still trying to cut more back, and I feel like, wow, I'm not doing like anything. But then I'm like, oh, but on the big scale of things, like if you look at what I've accomplished in 6 months to a year, every year now, I'm like, holy shit, I have been like crushing it.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting the little dumb things done, every day. And actually, I'm cutting a lot of those little things.
Me too. I'm trying to do that too. Or if I do like some of these little things that I would have been more stressed out about before, I think I'm coming to them more like joyful, because it's like I'm choosing to do some extra little things, like because it's fun, not because I'm like needing anything out of it to like feel this certain way, Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just love it. I didn't realize I was kind of trying to do this for so long, to just kind of get at what is most essential. I love that. It's really been leading my whole, like, since I read the book a couple weeks back, that question, because it really helps me focus from day to day.
I agree. What is it helps you focus every day. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, I can relate to, you said you were like looking back. I just was looking back and working on some taxes stuff for 2020. Nice. And I know, I was like, I can't believe it. But I was looking at like when I first started keeping track of my expenses and income, and then like to now.
Right.
And just even my bookkeeping, I was like, holy shit, like I'm getting it. You can see like how terrible it was in the beginning of when I started this certain process I'm doing. And now like, oh my God, like, I think I'm coming up with like the system that works for me, and now I can grow into something. I was just like, holy crap.
Awesome.
I don't think I could have seen it if I hadn't like, I don't know, had some kind of other perspective of seeing it written down. But it's helping me evaluate where I need to look at essentialism even there. Like, where can I just like alleviate some stuff? It's just like making room for what good needs to come. That's my woo-woo side of it. Like just getting rid of all this stuff, the extra shoes in your closet, all that stuff. Like, it makes room for whatever needs to come, whether it's energy or
so great.
Your pair of shoes.
And, kind of connecting with the other book I was talking about called The One Thing.
Right.
And I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but, we'll have it in the show notes. But essentially with this book, his whole premise is that you ask yourself this question: what is the one thing that I can do right now that will make everything else easier or unnecessary? And I love that saying, because to me that saying is so powerful, because I might be like, oh, I really need to do this, but I'm like, if I do this other thing, the thing I thought I needed to do might not even be necessary at all.
Right.
And that's when you start to really figure out like, holy cow, okay, so maybe my priority is not really my priority.
Oh my God.
That really helps you focus in. If you do this one task, that makes all your other tasks like easier. But what I'm finding more so than anything is that when I really meditate on that saying, I can find the one thing that will make my whole life better.
Do you know that's what the word priority, I think Greg brings up in the book, the word priority meant one thing originally. And now it wasn't meant to be a plural word.
Priorities list.
And I love this. You like totally is perfect on the next list of notes I took in the book. A quote from Greg here is, we are unprepared in part for the first time. Wait, hold on. Here it is. Edit. It says we've lost our ability to filter what is important and what isn't. And it's made us have decision fatigue. That's a paraphrase here. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more choices we're forced to make, the more the quality of our decisions deteriorate. And so like we don't even have like, it's hard to think about that one thing. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I'm too busy feeling anxiety. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to think about right now? Totally. So it's a new mental practice. So be easy and kind to yourself, But man, it just, giving yourself something to ask yourself when you sit down to work every day is a great place to start. Like, okay, what is the biggest step I can take right now? Or what is the most important thing right now? Is it that I need to send this email that's making me feel like crap because I haven't done it yet? That could be the biggest thing right now. maybe, you know. I know for me, like if something's really nagging me, like about a to-do thing, I either need to look at it and say, is this essential, or do I just need to do it? I realized that was what I was asking myself. But it's helping me let go of like,
and sometimes it's like the little to-do things. Like today, for example, I had one where I was like, this is not like a high priority at all.
I'm listening.
But I definitely literally just had to do it because it was nagging me. Like in my brain, I was like, by doing this simple little task, it will like clear my mind.
You can do all the other big things.
Yeah, I think like there's actually a part where you might be able to do that too. But one of the main things is like, don't check your email first thing in the morning.
Oh, my favorite thing to not do.
You know, leave all the mindless, unimportant tasks till the end of the day, you know, and it's just
do the hardest things first. I like that.
If you're a creative person, let's say you're a songwriter, like write your songs first thing in the morning, you know. And I know everybody's got their optimum time, so write your songs when you're in your optimum time and don't allow something else.
Somebody here. Oh, is that your timer? So nice.
So peaceful.
So peaceful. I need to change my timer to be something.
I know, isn't it nice?
I just turned my phone off because it rang or something. But it's just so great. I think everybody should read this book. You should go check it out. I was really very cheap on my Kindle, and I love to buy used books too. Totally go out there and write it. Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Yeah.
Greg, let us know. We appreciate you, but I'm so sorry we're not pronouncing your name right. We want to make sure we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for subscribing and following along. We're going to be inviting you all to read more books with us, so stay tuned. This is our book club episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we need like different intro music.
Yeah, we need like a special book club. We'll have like the pages flipping.
Oh my God, I love it. Do you like the way pages smell?
Yeah, I do.
I love that. Oh my God.
It's amazing. All right, we'll see you next week. Please subscribe on YouTube if you're watching this. If you're listening on the podcast,
or if you love the way books smell.
If you love the way books smell, then make sure to leave a 5-star review on how much you love the way the books smell.
You can also comment and tell
the
us.
Podcast. Yeah. And other than that, we'll see you next Monday, every Monday, live either on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting service. Toodaloo.
Bye.